Emergency landing.
Light aircraft lands on car while making emergency landing on Minnesota highway. Authorities are investigating an incident that saw a small plane crash into a car as it made an emergency landing on a Minnesota highway on Tuesday. A light aircraft took off from Hawley Municipal Airport in Minnesota on Tuesday morning, picking up a passenger and refueling before heading towards Minot, South Dakota. The plane's engine cut out mid-flight, so the pilot decided to make an emergency landing on Highway 10 in Minnesota. While landing, the plane caught up with a Ford Fusion driving in the same direction. The plane's propellers hit the side of the car. The plane came to a halt safely on the highway while the car drove into a nearby ditch. Damage to the aircraft was minimal and the pilot and passenger escaped unscathed. The driver of the car was also uninjured.
Alaska Airlines jet returns to Seattle after Birdstrike. An Alaska Airlines flight turned back to make an emergency landing at Seattle's SeaTac Airport on April 9 following a bird strike. Alaska Airlines Flight 336 with 112 passengers and 5 crew on board was headed for San Jose. It took off from SeaTac Airport in Seattle at around 8:51 p.m. on Thursday. A bird strike was reported after takeoff, but the exact time it took place is not known. The Boeing 737 aircraft was forced to return to Seattle as a safety precaution. The plane landed safely and no injuries were reported. Bird strikes are a threat to aviation security. More than 200 people have been killed worldwide in bird strikes since 1988.
Plane makes emergency landing in Los Angeles. An airplane that was unable to use part of its landing gear made a dramatic hard landing in Los Angeles yesterday. The pilot reported a mechanical problem as the regional United SkyWest plane carrying 43 passengers approached the airport. Despite the problem, the plane lands at speed on its belly with some of the landing gear undeployed before coming safely to a stop. There were no reported injuries among the crew and passengers. SkyWest said mechanics are investigating what caused the problem.
Brazilian passenger jet crash lands in Brasilia. The pilot of a small passenger jet was forced to crash land his plane at night when the aircraft's landing gear failed to open. The Avianca Airlines Fokker 100 was en route to the Brazilian capital Brasilia with 49 passengers and 5 crew on board. During the approach, a hydraulic problem caused the plane's front landing gear to fail to deploy. The aircraft's captain calmly made an announcement and aborted the landing. The captain then circled the plane above the city to expend fuel and reduce the aircraft's weight. He then made an emergency landing, grounding the rear wheels normally, then lowering the plane's nose to the tarmac for a belly landing. No one on board was hurt. The crash landing closed one of the airport's 2 runways, delaying flights to Brazil's 4th largest airport.
U.S. flight safe landing after slide malfunction. An evacuation slide was deployed mid-flight Sunday night, causing United Airlines Flight 1463 from Chicago's O'Hare Airport to Santa Ana's John Wayne Airport to be diverted to Mid-Continent Airport in Wichita. Passengers aboard heard a loud bang and a hiss as the emergency slide inflated. The Boeing 737-700 dropped from 38,000 feet at 10:05 p.m. to 11,000 feet 12 minutes later due to a loss in cabin pressure. All 96 passengers and 5 crew members on board were seated at the time of incident. No injuries were reported. Earlier reports that a passenger had attempted to open a door during the flight were false.
Worker falls asleep inside cargo hold of Alaska Airlines flight. An Alaska Airlines flight made an emergency landing in Seattle Monday after an airport staff member fell asleep inside a plane and became trapped inside the cargo compartment. A ramp agent reportedly fell asleep inside the plane and ended up trapped inside Alaska Airlines Flight 448, which was bound for Los Angeles from Seattle. The plane was in the air for approximately 14 minutes. The pilot reportedly heard a banging sound from beneath, and the captain immediately turned the plane back to Seattle Airport and declared an emergency landing. The agent was trapped in a pressurized and temperature-controlled compartment, but was taken to hospital as a precaution.
A flight from London to Singapore was forced to make an emergency landing at Azerbaijan's capital airport on Sunday after a drop in cabin air pressure. The drop in air pressure occurred on a Singapore Airlines A380 traveling from London to Singapore at about 11 a.m. on Sunday. When cruising at altitude, the airliner's cabin is pressurized. Pressurized air from the engines is cooled before being released into the cabin. At ground level, the pressure is equal inside and outside the plane. But the outside air pressure drops as the plane ascends. At 35,000 feet, the oxygen available is only 1/4 that of sea level. A healthy adult can withstand altitudes as high as 13,000 feet, but symptoms including headache, dizziness, and vomiting will gradually kick in at higher altitudes. Reports said that the cabin depressurized because of a defective door seal. Malaysian Airlines Flight 066 was a red-eye flight and shared a similar flight path with the ill-fated Flight 370. The Airbus A330-300 departed Kuala Lumpur at just before midnight Sunday, March 23rd and was scheduled to arrive in South Korea at 6:50 a.m. Just over 2 hours into the flight, an electric generator that supplies power for onboard use failed. At 2:30 a.m., the pilot alerted Hong Kong International Airport of the problem. While the plane's auxiliary power generator kept power flowing to the jet, the pilots decided the problem was serious enough to require an emergency landing. The plane landed without incident at Hong Kong International Airport at around 3 a.m. on Monday.
A plane safely made an emergency landing in Rome's Fiumicino airport after its landing gear malfunctioned on Sunday night. The Airbus A320 aircraft was flying in from Madrid and belonged to Italy's national carrier, Alitalia. The aircraft's right side landing gear failed to deploy properly during a thunderstorm. The jet made an emergency landing at Rome's main airport and toppled onto its right wing. 10 of the flight's 151 passengers sustained minor injuries. The exact cause of the malfunction is being investigated. An Indian budget airliner was forced to make an emergency landing at Kuala Lumpur International Airport on Thursday after a suspicious package was found in the plane's toilet. The plane took off from Singapore and was bound for Chennai. It was carrying 145 passengers and 6 crew members. A crew member found a package inside one of the toilets and it was thought to contain hazardous materials. A distress call was made at about 7:50 a.m. A fire and rescue team was sent to inspect the package, only to find it contained 3 gold bars. An investigation is being carried out to determine how the package got onto the plane.
A United Airlines plane was forced to divert and make an emergency landing after the captain suffered a heart attack during the flight on Thursday night. The planned route for United Airlines Flight 1603 was from Houston, Texas to Seattle, Washington. According to the airline, 161 passengers were on board the Boeing 737 at the time. During the flight, the captain suffered a heart attack. Passengers on board with medical training attempted to administer life-saving maneuvers. The co-pilot radioed the Boise Airport control tower of the medical emergency at 7:55 p.m. The plane was diverted to Boise, Idaho, and landed safely at 8:10 p.m. The captain was rushed to a local hospital but died 3 hours later. The plane later continued on to Seattle and landed a little after midnight.